Hello, my name is Sarah Bell. I'm the farm manager at the Center for Food Education, and welcome to Jones Valley Teaching Farms Food Safety Training. Thank you for your interest in the Harvest Hands volunteer program and for taking the time to complete this training video so we can all keep our harvest safe. Harvest Hands is a program that goes more in depth on our farming practices while getting to do the fun part of harvesting food for our community. All of the produce harvested in the farm goes to our farm stand, field trip programs, Birmingham City Schools, or Harvest Share, our CSA-type veggie bags that are delivered to our neighbors at Park Place. So without further ado, welcome to the food safety training, how to keep our harvest healthy. In this training, you will learn physical, biological, and chemical contaminations on the farm, how to prevent the spread of contamination, and our food safety practices and standard operating procedures. Food safety is how we prevent and reduce produce contamination and foodborne illness on the farm. At the downtown farm, we do this by having a detailed food safety plan, written standard operating procedures, lots of record keeping, and training for any person that wants to harvest from the farm. Food safety is incredibly important because an estimated 228,000 people are hospitalized and 2,000 people die annually from pathogens transmitted by food. In 2011, President Obama signed into law the Food Safety Modernization Act. FSMA requires certain guidelines for farms and produce processing companies to adhere to in order to combat outbreaks of foodborne illness. In food safety, it is important to know what a pathogen is. A pathogen is a bacteria, virus, parasite, or other microorganism that can cause disease. A pathogen is also a contaminant. There are 3 types of contaminants you need to be aware of when harvesting and handling food: physical, chemical, and biological. Pathogens are a form of biological contamination, and they are the source of foodborne illness. Microorganisms and produce. Some of the most common foodborne illnesses are from bacteria. E. coli, Salmonella, and Listeria, you might have heard of. These are all forms of bacteria that can cause severe illness. Bacteria can multiply extremely quickly. If conditions are right, they can multiply once every 20 minutes. So 50 cells can multiply to 200 cells within 1 hour, and a very small amount of cells ingested can cause illness. What I mean when I say ideal conditions is that the bacteria has a food source. There is moisture and the temperature is right. You can also remember this with the acronym FATM: food, acidity, time, temperature, oxygen, moisture. Generally, this means the longer produce is at room temperature, certain produce is at room temperature and wet or moist, the more bacteria can multiply quickly. This is one reason we try to get all produce into the walk-in cooler as quickly as possible. The walk-in cooler is around 40 degrees at all times, and this is because this prevents bacteria from multiplying and keeps the produce fresh. The most common viruses that are the cause of foodborne illness originate from poop. This includes norovirus and Hep A. So as we move throughout the farm and office, we must always be mindful of the fecal-oral route. So fecal matter can travel from our shoes, clothes, or hands to harvest surfaces, tools, or even the produce itself. Parasites are also a type of biological contamination, but due to being on municipal water and in an urban setting, is not as much something that we worry about. So, Biological contamination sources come from soil amendments, animals, water, humans, and all equipment and tools. There are a lot of different contamination sources on a farm. These are all different sources of contamination. So this is where pathogens can be found. Soil amendments, animals, water, humans, equipment, and tools. Our situation is pretty different from a lot of large farms and rural farms. We don't encounter the same risks as some farms, but that just means we have to tailor our food safety plan and our SOPs to our context. Soil amendments. So soil amendments, especially raw manure, which is used on a lot of farms, can be a contamination source. We use compost, which is not considered a raw amendment. Synthetic fertilizers and pesticides can be dangerous for people and the planet, but since we are an organic farm and we do not spray anything right before harvest, we really don't have to worry about that. But you can always check with the manager if you're concerned. Animals. On our farm, since we are in an urban setting, the animals that the farm interacts with the most are birds, mice, rats, and sometimes cats and dogs. So, although we love animals, we do not love their poop, and that is really the main thing we watch out for. Water. A lot of rural areas have more contaminant risk with water. Well water and leaking septic tanks can be sources of contamination, but since our irrigation and harvest water is municipal water, it typically comes to us sometimes over-sanitized, though there is always a greater risk that water is contaminated in some way, no matter where you live. Once we fill a sink or tank with water to wash the produce, we must be mindful that water does not end up harboring pathogens in it, like from our hands or a bird accidentally pooping in the water. When in doubt, empty the sink and refill with new water. One of our standard operating procedures is to always change water between crops. So humans. Humans are the most significant contamination source for you to remember. Workers can harbor pathogens and other contaminants. You can identify and evaluate the risks to help prevent the spread of any contaminants. Workers must maintain personal cleanliness, wash hands between potential contamination risks. Please notify us if you are ill, and take responsibility for ensuring your harvest tools are cleaned and sanitized always. Really, when in doubt, wash your hands. So when should you wash your hands? Some examples are after using the toilet, before starting or returning to work, before and after eating, before putting on gloves, after touching animal waste of any kind, and any other times your hands may be contaminated. Surface and equipment contamination. So equipment and tools, the other most important contamination source for you to consider is surface and equipment contamination. Any unclean surface that touches produce can harbor pathogens. As you prepare for harvest, from getting ready to washing and processing, consider everything that will touch produce or that has already touched produce. So how can we prevent biological contamination? The best way for a worker to prevent illness and reduce the risk of pathogens is by cleaning and sanitizing. By cleaning, we mean the physical removal of dirt from the surface by using a hose, brush, soap, and water, and then we sanitize. By sanitize, we mean treating a cleaned surface with a bleach spray to reduce or eliminate pathogens. A dirty surface cannot be sanitized. What should we clean and sanitize? any surface that will touch the produce. This includes packing and picking containers, bins, harvest pruners and knives, hands, clothes, harvest water or water in the sink, door handles, and any other piece of harvest equipment. So another contamination source is physical objects. Physical contamination is not a concern of foodborne illness, but it is gross and potentially dangerous. Physical contamination is any physical object that could get into a produce bag or bin and then be ingested or injure someone. Examples might include glass, metal, hair, fingernails, etc. As an urban farm, we encounter a lot of trash on the farm. So you as part of the harvest crew are responsible for tying your hair back or wearing a hat, being observant in the field and in the wash station for any unwanted physical objects. Chemical contamination would be accidentally ingesting fertilizers, pesticides, or too much soap or bleach. Farm managers are always mindful of spraying any organic pesticides prior to harvest, but let a farm manager know if you have any concerns. You are responsible for refilling the soap cleaner and sanitizing sprays with the correct ratios when they're empty, and they are labeled on the side of the spray bottles. One thing is to make sure you completely rinse soap off from harvest equipment before sanitizing. And please always keep your belongings in the designated area for volunteers, which I'll be happy to show you when you arrive. So, our food safety procedures really mean nothing if harvest workers do not reinforce them. We need everyone to be aware of the risk and keep each other in check. Every person can make a difference because even one worker can be the cause of foodborne illness, so we must all remain vigilant. If you are ever unsure about what you should be doing in relation to food safety or harvesting, please ask us and we will always guide you. We would rather you ask us a million questions than are only 50% sure about something. Just so you know, at Jones Valley, our food safety plan includes hazard analysis, preventative controls, and monitoring procedures and records. It also includes standard operating procedures, or SOPs. So they are the clear standards of practice that we use to train volunteers and staff so that we are all on the same page and doing the same thing every time. An SOP includes the purpose, who, when, where, what you need to know to perform the SOP, and then instructions for the procedure. You will be responsible for the following SOPs that I will hand out to you on your first shift. Those include pest monitoring, management, and corrective actions, hand washing, cleaning and sanitizing surfaces, tools, and equipment, on-farm illness and injury, worker illness reporting, changing post-harvest water in a bulk tank, bin, or container, and worker training to identify, report, and respond to animal activity and fecal contamination in produce production areas. All right, thank you so much for watching our food safety presentation. You can go on to JVTF.org or use the QR code on the screen to find the Harvest Hands registration form. You can sign up for as many or as few shifts as you want. On the registration form, there's a question about the secret code from the food safety training, and in that you can write food safety rules so that I know you watched the training. And for your first shift, please make sure to arrive on time at 8:30 so I can go over how we wash and sanitize our harvest station. After that, you can show up anytime during the harvest shift. Just want to make sure that you understand our washing and sanitizing procedures. Um, so if you registered but need to cancel, you can email me. When you come for your harvest shift, I would definitely recommend long pants and lots of sun protection, especially in the summer. And there are some scratchy plants, so having a long sleeve on hand may be very useful, especially when we start harvesting things like okra, summer squash, and cucumbers. Those always leave me a little itchy. So having a long sleeve that you can take on and off will be super great. And it's extra sun protection, so that's a plus.